When I first married Michael, I knew life was going to change in ways I couldn't fully prepare for. I wasn't just marrying a man I loved deeply, but I was also stepping into a role I had never played before, a stepmother. Michael had a son, Ethan, who was 11 when I first met him. He was shy, reserved, and protective of his world, which made sense. His parents had separated a few years before, and his heart was still healing from the changes in his family life. At first, Ethan kept his distance. He would politely answer questions, nod when spoken to, and quietly go back to his room. I never wanted to push myself into his space or try too hard to win him over. I knew that kind of relationship had to grow naturally. Instead, I focused on small things, asking him about his favorite foods, learning about his hobbies, cheering at his soccer games, and showing up consistently, so he could see I wasn't going anywhere. Slowly, little cracks in his protective wall began to show. He would laugh at a silly joke, share something about school, or sit a little longer at the dinner table instead of rushing off. Each moment felt like a small victory. One Saturday afternoon, months after Michael and I had settled into married life, I was in the kitchen making lunch. The smell of grilled cheese and tomato soup filled the air, a comforting combination I knew Ethan liked. I was slicing apples when I heard his footsteps shuffle into the kitchen. He leaned against the counter, looking thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said, his voice soft but filled with a kind of seriousness that made me pause. "Of course," I replied, setting the knife down and giving him my full attention. "What's on your mind?" He looked down at the floor, almost as if the linoleum held the answer he was searching for. "Why did you marry my dad?" It wasn't the question I expected. I thought maybe he'd ask about video games, school projects, or if I knew how to make his grandma's pancakes. But instead, he hit me with something deeper, something that showed he was thinking not just about me, but about his place in this new family. I smiled gently and crouched a little, so I was eye level with him. "I married your dad because I love him. He makes me laugh, he makes me feel safe, and he has the kindest heart." And I paused, choosing my words carefully. I knew that marrying him meant I'd get to be part of your life too. That was important to me. Ethan's eyes softened, but there was still a question lingering there. "But doesn't it bother you that he was married before? That I'm not really your kid?" My heart ached in the best way. This boy, who had been holding his guard so tightly, was finally letting me see his vulnerability. I reached for his hand, and to my relief, he didn't pull away. "Ethan, you are really important to me. You don't have to be my kid in the way people usually think. What matters is that I care about you, and I'll always be here for you. You're part of my family, and nothing changes that." For the first time, Ethan's lips curved into a small smile that felt genuine. "So, you don't see me as, like, a problem?" I shook my head, squeezing his hand. "Not at all. I see you as someone I'm lucky to know." That moment in the kitchen became a turning point for us. From then on, Ethan started talking to me more freely. At dinner, he'd share stories about school without needing to be prompted. Sometimes he'd even wander into the kitchen just to keep me company while I cooked, asking questions about recipes or telling me about his favorite YouTubers. One evening, while Michael was working late, Ethan and I sat on the couch watching a superhero movie. Halfway through, he leaned against me casually, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart swelled, because I knew how much trust it took for him to do that. By the time Michael came home, Ethan was fast asleep with his head on my shoulder. Michael smiled at the sight, and in that unspoken exchange between us, we both knew we were building something real. But family isn't just built on sweet moments, it's also shaped through challenges. A few months later, Ethan had a tough time at school. Some kids had teased him about having a stepmom, making it sound like a negative thing. He came home quiet, retreating to his room. After dinner, I knocked gently on his door and asked if I could come in. He hesitated, then nodded. "They called me names today," he admitted, his voice shaky. "They said I was unlucky because my parents aren't together and that having a stepmom is weird." I sat on the edge of his bed and took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry they said that, Ethan. Sometimes people say mean things about things they don't understand. But let me tell you something. Families don't all look the same. What makes a family special isn't whether everyone is connected by blood. It's how much love and support we give each other. He looked at me, tears brimming in his eyes. So, we're still a real family? I brushed his hair gently out of his face. Of course we are. You, your dad, and me were a family. And don't ever let anyone make you feel less because of it. That night, Ethan hugged me tightly before bed. It was the first time he had done it without hesitation. And in that hug, I felt not just acceptance, but love. As months turned into years, our bond grew stronger. Ethan started introducing me to his friends as his stepmom, but with pride in his voice instead of shame. He'd ask me for advice on homework or even little things like how to talk to his coach. Once, on Mother's Day, he surprised me with a handmade card. It read, "You may not be my mom, but you've given me love like one. Thank you for being here for me." I cried when I read it, and I kept that card in my drawer, where it still sits today. The kitchen, where our first meaningful conversation happened, remained our safe space. It was where we talked about school stress, first crushes, and even big dreams for the future. One evening, while helping me stir pasta sauce, Ethan said, "You know, I think I want to be a teacher one day. Because you always explain things in a way that makes me feel like I can do them too." My throat tightened as I smiled at him. I think you'd make an amazing teacher. Looking back, that day in the kitchen when Ethan asked me why changed everything. It wasn't just about my reasons for marrying his dad. It was about showing him that love doesn't have limits, that family isn't defined by labels, and that understanding each other can bridge the gaps life sometimes creates. Years later, when Ethan graduated high school, he gave a short speech at a family dinner. He thanked his dad for always being his role model. Then, turning to me, he said, "And thank you, Sarah, for answering my questions in the kitchen when I needed them most. You've been more than a stepmom, you've been family." There wasn't a dry eye at the table that night. Our story wasn't about replacing anyone or pretending the past didn't exist. It was about creating something new, something built on love, patience, and the courage to talk openly in a little kitchen that became the heart of our family. And that's what I've come to realize. Sometimes, the smallest questions asked in the simplest of places can change everything.